If you're thinking about moving to Silicon Valley and Cambrian keeps coming up in your search, I want to give you the real story on this neighborhood, because there's a version of Cambrian that makes total sense and a version that's going to leave you frustrated. And which one you get depends almost entirely on how you're looking at it. So here's what I mean. You're going to find a house. It'll be around 1,400 square feet, built in the 60s, and it's going to be listed at $1.5 million. And your first reaction is going to be, is this serious? Because where you're coming from, that same amount of money buys you a completely different house. And you're not wrong, but I'd argue you might be looking at it the wrong way. Cambrian has never been about the house. That's not why people fight to get in here. What they're actually buying is a lot harder to explain on paper, and once you get it, the price starts to make a whole lot more sense. So let me walk you through what's actually going on in this neighborhood, the good, the not so good, and why I think 2026 is actually a pretty interesting time to be looking here. So let's start where it sits, because that's really the foundation of everything. Cambrian is tucked right between Willow Glen, Campbell, and Los Gatos. If you work at Apple, you're about 15 to 20 minutes away. Google, Netflix, most of the big tech offices in South Bay, same story. And if you're going into the office 2 or 3 days a week like most people are right now, that drive starts to matter a lot. You get an hour back in your day every day, and honestly, that's not nothing. You're also 5 minutes from downtown Campbell. Good restaurants, a real farmer's market, walkable on a Saturday morning. Los Gatos is right there too. If you're used to driving 30 minutes just to find a decent meal, you're going to notice that difference pretty fast. So yes, the house is going to be smaller than you expected, but what you're really paying for is time and where you get to spend it. And in this part of California, that has a real price tag. Now I'll be real with you, the homes are going to take some getting used to. Most of what's for sale in Cambrian was built in the 50s, 60s, and a few of them in the 70s. You're getting smaller rooms, older kitchens. Now the neighborhoods are well kept and the streets are quiet, but you are not getting new construction at these prices. Depending on the house, you might be walking into a kitchen that needs work, bathrooms that haven't been touched in 20 years, and a backyard that just needs some love. Here's what I tell people though, and this comes from doing this for over 20 years. A lot of what looks tired in these homes is actually pretty easy to fix. A bathroom refresh, new cabinet faces in the kitchen, some updated fixtures. It's not always the full renovation it looks like at first glance. Now, my partner Tam and I have helped a lot of buyers figure out what actually needs to be done versus what just needs a little attention. And more often than not, the number is a lot more manageable than people expect going in. Now that said, you still want to know what you're getting into. So figure out your renovation budget before you fall in love with a price. $1.5 million that needs $100,000 of work is really $1.6 million. Know that going in, because finding out after you're under contract is a rough way to learn it. Now people ask about walkability a lot, and I want to be honest about this. Cambrian is not a neighborhood where you're strolling to the coffee shop or walking to the grocery store. You're going to drive. And look, that's true of most of San Jose. Unless you're right downtown, you're in a car. That's just the reality of how this city is built. But here's the thing, the neighborhoods that are truly walkable downtown don't have schools anywhere close to what Cambrian has. You're trading one thing for another. And in Cambrian, what you get instead is quiet streets, good neighbors, and some of the best schools in the South Bay. For most families relocating here, that's not a hard trade. And speaking of the neighborhood itself, there's something happening in Cambrian right now that I think is a really big deal. And most people looking at homes here don't fully appreciate it yet. Right in the middle of Cambrian, there's a massive redevelopment project underway. A large site that's been sitting there for years is about to be completely transformed. The city of San Jose just pulled the permits to start the demolition. And I mean, they just pulled them last week. This is literally happening right now. And when it's done, that site is going to have single-family homes, townhomes, shops, restaurants, a hotel, and almost 2 acres of park space running right through the middle of it. Now this is going to take a few years to fully come together. So if you buy in Cambrian soon, you're going to pass by some of that construction. But I think it's going to be a great addition to the area. And instead of that old strip mall that's there now. And here's what I keep seeing happening all over Silicon Valley for over the last 20, 30 years. The window right before a neighborhood finishes its transformation is almost always when you get the best entry. The price reflects the inconvenience, not what's going to look like when it's all done. The buyers who end up feeling great about it 5 years later are usually the ones who looked past the construction fence and bought anyway. So once that project is complete, it's genuinely going to change the feel of that entire neighborhood. More life, more energy, and more reasons to be outside. And that's good for the community and it's good for your home's value. So look, if you need everything to feel polished and finished right now, 2026 Cambrian might not be the moment. But if you're thinking 5, 7, 10 years out, you might be stepping in at exactly the right time. So if we haven't met, my name is Kip and I've been a licensed broker for over 20 years here in Silicon Valley. And besides being a top producer, I've sat on the ethics committee here for over a decade. And I've also managed an office for the #1 brokerage in the country, overseeing billions of dollars in sales. And what I love more than anything is helping buyers and sellers here in Silicon Valley. And I'll mention, I'm not just telling you about Cambrian from the outside. My wife Tam and I actually live here. Our daughter went to schools. So when I tell you what this neighborhood is really like, it's not research, it's just our experience. Now, one thing I tell every person I work with who's relocating, and this one surprises people, the schools matter even if you don't have kids. Cambrian and Union school districts are both really strong. I watched my own daughter go through them and I saw it firsthand. These are serious schools with great teachers and a heavily involved community. Families specifically look for homes inside these boundaries, and they pay more to be there. That demand doesn't disappear when the market softens. Homes in good school districts hold their value better, they sell faster, and they attract more buyers when it's your turn to move on. And what that means for you practically, if you ever need to sell at a time when the market isn't great, you want to be in a neighborhood that buyers are still competing over. And Cambrian tends to be one of those neighborhoods. And honestly, that's true even right now, when buyers overall have a little more breathing room than they did here a few years ago. Now, you'll notice the market today is more forgiving than it's been in a while. Rates have come down into the low to mid 6s, and they seem to be holding there. Now, this is spring of 2026, so that's obviously going to change in the future. But right now, there's more on the market, and you're not automatically walking into a 10 offer situation the first weekend, at least not on everything. There's room to actually look at a house, think about it, maybe ask for some concessions. And that was basically impossible a few years ago. Now, I recently had a pair of clients not too long ago relocating from out of state. They both worked in tech, they had done a ton of research, and they almost wrote Cambrian off completely because of what they were getting for the money compared to back home. So we sat down when they were here and actually run the numbers together. And what their commute was costing them in time, what the school district does for resale down the road, and what the same lifestyle would actually run them in Willow Glen or Los Gatos. And when they saw it all laid out, the whole thing clicked. They bought, and 6 months later, they told me they were very happy with their decision over where they were initially thinking of buying. So that's what happens when you stop comparing the house and start thinking about the life you're actually going to be living. So the question Cambrian really comes down to is pretty simple. Are you buying a house or are you buying a lifestyle? Because if you come in here expecting what $1.5 million gets you somewhere else, you're going to be frustrated every time. But if you're thinking about the drive to work, the schools, the neighborhood that's genuinely about to go through a real transformation, it starts to look a lot less like a compromise and a lot more like a really smart move. And the buyers who figure that out tend to stay a long time, and they're usually really glad they did. So if you're relocating and trying to figure out whether Cambrian actually makes sense for your situation, I put together a free guide that breaks down the neighborhoods, the trade-offs, and what different budgets really get you right now. Link is in the description. No pitch, no pressure, just the real information before you start touring. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Hey guys, for more content similar to this, smash that like and subscribe button and we'll see you next time.